Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome or welcome back, as the case might be, on this wonderful Monday, March 17th, 2025. By the way, happy St. Patrick's Day. My name is Dalibor Petrovic, and I'm the founder of the Summit Leadership Alliance and host to these TechTonic Conversations, a series of live webcasts where I'm inviting and having conversations with Canadian technology leaders, people who are shaping the future of our country, some of the most sophisticated, experienced, wise technology leaders and tech executives. And today I'm thrilled to welcome a friend and colleague, Dominic Mailhot. Dominic, greetings. Thank you very much for your time. It's a pleasure to have you join me.
Thank you, Dalibor, and pleasure to be here with you today.
Wonderful. So Dominic is the Chief Digital Information Officer with Export Development Canada. And Dominic, I'm looking forward to hearing your story. For those who are following us live, of course, this is a live session, which will allow you to submit any questions you might have for me or Dominic. Please use the Q&A function of this Zoom platform. Also, please note that this session is being recorded, and very soon after the session, I will post it on our YouTube channel, TechTonic Conversations. Now, I typically do not introduce my guests at any length because, of course, that wouldn't do it justice. But instead, I prefer to ask my guests to actually tell us their own stories in their own words. So, Dominic, I would love to hear who you are and how you navigated your life and your career to now be at the helm of digital information for export development.
Thank you very much, Dalibor. Welcome, everybody. Look, it's funny, when I was preparing for this talk today, what I like about these opportunities, it allows just take a step back and connect the dot backwards and just like putting things together. It's kind of a moment of reflection. And, as I was preparing, it's like I was thinking about how to present myself, and then I was looking at my career, my path that brought me here today, and I've looked at it, and it's like I've been lucky. I've been lucky. I look at when I started, when I finished university. So I graduated in computer science back in the days. I major in artificial intelligence, but I don't put that in my resume or LinkedIn anymore because one recruiter told me to remove that. It looks like I just added that after the fact. So it was being too opportunistic. But no, I've been very lucky. I mean, when I was the first cohort in university to have email. So it gives an idea as to when I started. Like everything was starting there. The word e-business was not even a word yet. It just started when I joined the job market, which I started at IBM actually in the e-business division. After graduating from university, and for about 8-9 years I've worked there, a little bit all over the place in Canada, but most of the time in the United States. And I was in this group, this division, always focusing on new and emerging technology. So I've been very privileged to work on the first of, let's say, the first check-in application for Delta Airlines, the first banking online application for Desjardins, for instance, like things like always like first this, first that, always dealing with new technology as they were evolving, and most of the time just winging it along the way. So it was actually very interesting path, but it was just being lucky, right? Just in the right place and the right moment, being able to learn these new technologies, basically the web, right? All this interconnectivity that we have to live with now, like growing in my career with this. I was for like 7, 8, 9 years. I can't recall now. I was in consulting, and then I flipped toward the corporate side at one point. Was a combination of factors. I've been lucky also with having very good mentors along the way. Not like assigned mentors, but really people that, just decide to help me out, and great good advice. I'd say like in my career, I can name maybe like 3 people who've been very instrumental in helping me navigate that. Like my first boss at IBM, the one who hired me in, well, she's the one who got me out of IBM 9 years after, 8, 9 years after. to join another organization when I actually joined the corporate world. So leaving consulting, going to corporate was actually one of the biggest transition in my career, I would say. I was already managing people in consulting, actually thinking I was, because looking back, I was pretty bad at it. Definitely not leading. That was really like pure managing. And but nothing had prepared me from that switch from consulting, high adrenaline, to corporate world, which is still can be high adrenaline, but it's a different perspective entirely.
The different.
Took me years to actually acclimate to this. So although in consulting I've been in many industries, I continue to navigate from one industry to another. Afterwards, I went to government, actually, FinTrack for a little while. Then I went to retail. I worked at Rona, always in different position. At that time, I was already in leadership position. I had transitioned pretty early in my career. I would say too early, from pure content to managing teams, namely always in the tech space. Always stayed in the tech space. Somewhere around those years, end of 2000, I had this moment of, do I still want to do that? Just that's when I left consulting and went all around thinking, okay, maybe I should switch field entirely. So I went to study, took a couple of courses in international studies. I mean, this is like totally different.
Wow.
I was like, for a year or two, I was driving my wife mad at the time, trying to say, am I still doing this? Am I still doing that? What am I going to do? And at one point, she told me, say, why don't you just do an MBA and move on? So that was it. That's it. I needed this. Looking back, what was happening is that although I was enjoying being in the tech space, I wanted to broaden a bit my horizon, right? I didn't know how to do it, didn't know what to do, how to go about it. And actually, this MBA actually helped me out a lot from an overall leadership standpoint, but also like to broaden the horizon, go beyond technology a bit. And I've been able to capitalize on that throughout the year. I started getting into the more executive position in a startup here in Montreal with Interchem. Very, very fulfilling experience. That was the only time, so far it's been the only time in my career where I've been in a true startup. Things are so different there. I mean, yes, you hear about it. It's entrepreneurial. It's you have to do with what you have, and it's one thing to say it. It's another to live it. And that's the only opportunity I had in my career there to build everything from the ground up. Like to just okay, this is the first financial system. This is the first HR system. This is our first procurement technology backbone system. Like all these things were all the first. The data migration, which is one of the top risk and major project implementation. That was like an afterthought. That was fine, done over the weekend. So small. Of course, it had a whole set of challenge, but this was an amazing experience. Then went to executive position at Intact, and then finally landed at EDC about 3 years ago. Been able to have 2 kids along the way, 15 and 12. Looking back, there's some pieces of my life when I'm looking back and I'm thinking, I don't know how I've been able to to wing it, to be able to conciliate family and the work. And that's one thing that I've kind of made peace with, is that I've never been able to, and I did struggle and try in the past to try to separate work from life, or work from personal.
Not possible.
I started to feel a lot better when I stopped fighting it and just acknowledge, it's never going to happen for me. So I just
that's a great point that you mentioned. And I think I went through a similar sort of trying to balance work and life, and then I realized, actually, for the type of work that we do, like the knowledge workers, this is intellectual work. It's really hard to unplug yourself at 5 and reconnect yourself at 8:30. Like, mind is working. So to me, what I learned is that I need to actually balance life. That's what I need to do. I need to balance life. Work is part of it. And so are the relationships and children and hobbies, right? It's one thing that you need to manage. If I try to separate the two, impossible. So I empathize with you on that.
Totally agree. The trick is to be able not to bring the work problem into the personal relationship or vice
Yeah,
versa. But once
yeah.
you've been able to cope with that mechanism, I think that, yeah, you're right. That's the way to do it, at least for
Thank
some
you.
of us.
This is you have such a rich career. This is fantastic. So thank you for sharing this with us. So computer science degree with focus on artificial intelligence, but way before AI became so popular, right? And then consulting experience, government experience, big retail experience, small startup experience. On top of that, MBA degree, a family, and now Expert Development Canada Chief Information. That's a very impressive career. You mentioned you had three mentors. I was going to ask you, so when you reflect back, like what do you think were those pivotal moments that, or pivotal moments or people that have sort of influenced and shaped your career?
Well, these three mentors that I've had, I mean, these are well, at least one of them right now is a like an ongoing advisor. He's the first person that I talk to as soon as I got a job offer or thinking about
Yeah,
switching or anything like that. Um, so it'd be maybe like too detailed to go into like all the times they've been helping me out here. And it's mostly like the sum of all the little advices and that have been given me that I think really help out. Although some of them actually been able like to shake me out of lethargy when I was not happy where I was or dealing with the big problems. But if I take just a broader perspective and think about like the let's say broader events that actually shaped some of my behavior today, um, I would say like there's two major one. One of them dates from what 15 something years ago. Um, I was for a while in actually I was at IBM where they created this team, called it a SWAT team. Actually, I had that on my business card. It was pretty cool, right? SWAT team.
yeah,
They, they were parachuting us. There were a group of 5 people parachuting us in troubled project. It was all over the world. So with specific technologies that we were specialized in, and so we're a bunch of like tech experts with some management project management expertise being sent to those projects and like make it work, right? It was
yeah,
major multi-million-dollar deal that were failing. And the reason why they had created that team of experts was because, well, it's probably a tech problem, right? It's like too big of an implementation, technology is not mature, whatever, go fix it, that type of.
yeah.
But it was about restructuring the project. So I did that for about 2 years. I don't know, like maybe 10, 8, 9, 10 projects that I've done and restructured there. And took me like 2 projects to realize that there was the pattern there that was always the same. It wasn't the technology. Was not like in some cases they okay a bit of project management methodology, just like take a
Mhm.
standard approach, like stop winging it, be more careful, manage your risk. Well, oh yeah, fine. But when you're multi-million dollar in the ditch, it's more than that, right? It's not just like manage your risk. There was a lot of things. And one of the lessons, actually the lessons that I've captured from this experience over there was that it was in all the cases, it was about the change management. It was about the stakeholder management in the project. This total disalignment
Oh
between
yes,
what I wanted and what I'm getting, and then what come in between. And
yeah,
then projects we were parachuting were, about to be deployed. People were totally ignored, whether the change management, the training, all this. And I'm talking like 15, a bit more than that, where managing big projects were actually not let's say an exercise muscle for many organizations, even in the consulting space. And that lesson about change management, and we're talking about projects where people getting fired out of it, like this, like
yes.
there was a lot
Tough.
that was very
Yeah,
tense, very tough, right?
yeah, yeah.
And then you look at it and it's just like, if you just have taken care of people here, you'll not be in that situation. Left alone how many millions you've sunk into that project, but just like so that this approach of change management and being more conscious, deliberate about it, that was definitely not a natural for me at that time. I mean, I was joking at that time. It's like, oh, you want me to do change management? Yeah, I'm taking a 2x4. That's my approach, right? No, just results. That's it. Forget about people. And for a while, it's like, this is how we were measured. This is how we're pushed, right? Execute, make it work, budget, especially in consulting, right? You go in there, make it work, make sure the contract is fulfilled, client is happy-ish, and let's move on. Sorry for my system integrator friends on the line, but that's what it's all about.
This is true. Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
And then that really turned a switch in my head at that point on how to go about managing people, managing project, but really managing people and having this forefront. There are humans in the mix, right? That seems cliche to say that nowadays, but go back 15 years ago, right? That was not the first thought when you were in people management. And then the other one, other big event is COVID. These when I it's the I don't know. I mean, because we had we took a step back and we're now a bit more into there was this big, let's take care of our people, right? So I was at Intact at the time. Let's be listening to the distress of our folks, and make sure. And there was this, I don't know, and maybe we all took a step back a little bit from the work and took it from a different angle. And for me, there was an overemphasis at that point, a positive one, on people, which for some people might have been more obvious, more natural. For me, it was not the first thought still. In terms, not that I was never been like a dictator or anything like that. Don't get me wrong here, but it allowed me to fine tune my leadership ability and how to focus. Just to give you an example, when I was at I don't remember when I did that test first, somewhere maybe 7-8 years ago. The color leadership, the red, the blue, the green, the yellow, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I've always been strong red, blue, and then the green, yellow comes after. I think yellow and then green. When I did that test about 3 years ago, 4 years, the red became the last one.
Oh my God!
Right, so, yellow first, green, blue, and then red.
So,
when I saw the result. Okay, that's a shift. That's a major shift. So that what happened in that period really changed my or increased my focus. The empathy, overall collaboration, and all that. So it was was a life changing for me. From that, if I take it from a leadership standpoint.
So really, the shift to realizing how important it is to navigate and lead actual people. And so really, at the end of the day, it's about people and being able to motivate them and lead them and orchestrate them and engage with them and give them space. And all of that wrapped up is what we refer to as change management. I love it. That's thank you for sharing that. We actually do have a question from the audience. I'd like to get to it because I think it's actually quite timely as we now talk about your career progression. And the question is, and thank you, by the way, to anonymous attendee who sent the question, as you left consultancy and shifted to corporate and startup, how did you know when there was time to make the move? And where to move? So what kind of questions do you ask yourself to know if the move would make sense or not? Can you maybe reflect on that a little bit?
Okay, you might be disappointed in my answer. I had no clue. I had absolutely no clue. One thing that I mentioned earlier on is my career has been in it. It looks like a straight path, right? I looked at my LinkedIn. It's it seems like a nice build-up. There's been a lot of mistakes along the way, either within organization. There are 3 organizations that I don't show in my profile where I left for these companies and then came back. So I work for Sun Microsystem, namely, and another consulting company in Ottawa. I didn't make mistake along the way. I honestly, I didn't know it was opportunistic, being
Opportunistic.
opportunistic, right?
Yeah.
Talking to people. When I make that switch from consulting to corporate, it was actually at a point in my life where I was like, I can't be doing this anymore. So what else do I want? Meaning, like, I was traveling like crazy. You want to bet,
Yeah.
because when you're in consulting and you started traveling and go to where the big projects are, it's very difficult to stop and say, hey, I'm
Yes.
going to start working local now, right? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
tried,
Of
and
course.
no,
Yeah.
it's not entertaining enough. Let's go back to travel. Then at that time was more the personal that came into the picture, was like, I need to stop traveling. I want to
Yeah.
have kids. And this is actually was the trigger. So there's no right or wrong answer to that. Is to be listening to the sign. Um, it's a major transition for me. Was just personal life getting into the mix, and frankly, I was tired of traveling. I was
Yeah.
like, and then I'm like, okay, stop traveling. I want to be working. I need to be working locally. Looking at the gigs that are around, and that's not entertaining. So when to corporate, I never regretted, actually. Just actually made a mistake. After I went to corporate world, I did another. I went back to consulting. Actually, went
Oh.
to Deloitte for about a year.
Oh.
Didn't
Okay.
quit because of Deloitte. I quit
Really?
because, you know what? I can't do consulting anymore. I'm done with it. It's like going back with your ex to realize, like, no, I was better off. Then
Oh,
you go
no,
back,
no, no, no.
right?
That's good.
So
That's funny.
yeah.
That's excellent. Excellent. So, Dominique, so now with Expert Development Canada, maybe we can spend a few minutes, if you can just maybe describe to me and the audience, so what Expert Development Canada does. And I would be curious to learn about, like, what are you and your teams working on that you feel would be cool or valuable to share? And perhaps even more importantly, what kind of challenges are you facing, and how are you dealing with those challenges?
So thank you. So EDC, Export Development Canada, we are a crown corporation.
Hmm.
So we are at arm's length from the government. So a we're not an agency. We're not part of the government and stuff. We are really a crown corp, like CMHC is, like
Yeah.
like BDC is. So our mandate is to help our Canadian exporter, to be successful in exporting outside
Yeah.
of Canada, obviously, right? So through any financial mechanism you can think of, it is there to it's in our toolkit to help the exporter to establish their presence or be more efficient in exporting outside of Canada. We are dealing with very small organization, medium, and very large ones.
Okay.
Okay, so it goes very high. So we do cover the full spectrum of the exporters in Canada. And of course, nowadays can tell you that we're pretty busy, because if you look at everything that's going on with the tariff, I mean,
I can imagine.
EDC is part of the solution, right? Helping our exporter to navigate through this uncertainty, but also find other solution and diversified, and I'm not going to repeat what's going on in the news, but you can picture like where EDC is able to play a very positive part of the story here. Um, Now, if I go back to like my mandate within EDC and what we're dealing with here, um, so when I joined 3 years ago, I mean, we're in the midst of a digital transformation, like many organizations, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're modernizing everything we've got. Okay, so EDC for years and years had maybe suffered from the lack of investments in technology, and I'd say that we were starting to pay the price of it. And I'm talking about the groundwork, like whether it be network, whether it be infrastructure, all the way to business applications, right? So I can talk about it in the past, because let's say the big bump of resetting our foundations had been done. So it's in the past now. Now we are really into the fast tracking of modernizing our business applications. Okay, so big challenge we have. We're renovating the house and we still live in it right now.
Yeah.
Okay, are we in a critical situation? No, we're not. Okay, it's just that we need to take actions, and we sustain actions for several years. So it's no different from many other organizations out there that have maybe waited another, let's see, let's say maybe a 3, 4, 5 years too much in investing in their technology. So, but right now we're in a place where we can fast track this modernization. I'm using the word modernization. I'm using the word modernization instead of digitalization, because sometimes digital, it means, we talk to 10 people, it means 20 different definition things, right?
100%.
So
100%. I agree.
you're replacing the old by new, while we still live in it.
Yeah.
And of course, the aim here is customer experience, improving it, employee experience, and of course, gaining efficiency along the way, right?
Yeah.
It's always like that. We had to struggle a lot with data, for instance. It's like when you manage your information for years and years without a master plan, well, yeah, you do end up with a lot of data all over, but that's the problem. It's all over, right? And it's not governed properly. Again, I think we've really harnessed that one. And then cyber, of course, right? It's crazy the amount of money we have to spend in cyber. I mean, I'm talking about not EDC, but in general. Of course, like right now, we're in a very, very viable solution situation at EDC when it comes to cyber. But this is like an ongoing investment, sustained investment, and we need to make like year over year over year. And sometimes I think that I just take a step back and thinking like, it's not going down, right? It's increasing all over. I'm thinking something will have to give eventually, right? I mean, I don't know if it's going to be AI solving this, but some things will have to really cope with that increased complexity of how we protect ourselves. And of course, along the way, we're able to introduce like the newer technology as well. So of course, Gen AI, which is not it's not stranger to us now. So we've got that in our walls. We do have quite a bit of AI initiative underway. We're not like in the market where we want to be first and innovate. We're not in R&D space. At the same time, and we're not lagging very far behind, I would say, right? So it's more a matter of prioritizing and making sure that we prioritize what brings the most value with the technologies that helps us.
Very cool. So thank you for sharing that. So looks like you're in the midst of modernization, that the foundations of that modernization are behind you now. The focus is on experience of consumers and clients and employees, and the focus continues to be on modernizing business systems, solving the cyber, solving for the data, and experimenting and deploying AI technologies, right? That seems to be sort of what you guys are focused on right now. If I was to, let's maybe talk a little bit about tech leadership and the role of a top tech executive for an organization. You have experienced multiple different industries in your career, and you've experienced multiple different organizational sizes, from IBM, that's gigantic, to a startup. As you reflect on the role of a CIO, tech executive, how do you experience that role change over time? And where do you feel the role is heading? And what would be those important attributes for a leader to succeed as a tech executive today and tomorrow?
Especially in the corporate world, right? Like we are today, like in let's say at EDC or even in the banking and all, you see, and rightly so, less and less of IT being a support function, right? I mean, we've been having these discussions for what, like 15 years, saying like IT has to be at the forefront, right? It's not a support function. Let's include it in the business and all. And there's been hit and miss in many organizations to try to do that, right? Although I'd say that it's been preferable for years and years, I think that now it's a must. You cannot have your IT, your technology as a support function in the back. It's too imbricated. It's too vital to the conduct of business, and not just the day-to-day run it, but also the evolving, gaining efficiency. You talk about, oh yeah, I want to optimize my business process. Well, try to do that without technology at the table. You can't
Correct.
anymore. You can't. It's very difficult. So the role as hit and miss for several years, been evolving toward more of a business, let's say, department, sorry, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
business function. And leaders have to be reflective of that, right? Have to be like a representative of that. The one trade that I found very successful for leader in technology are those with a background that's diversified, right? Especially at the executive leadership,
Mm.
where you have, yes, you do have the technology background, but you need to be able to talk the talk with
Mm.
the business folks, right? Better integrate the in the business conduct in the day to day. It's no longer a support. It's no longer just an afterthought. It has to be at the forefront, but it is to be deserved, right?
Yeah.
It's not to say, right? It's one thing to say, yeah, I want to be strategic. I want to be strategic. Yeah, but show me your value. Like, how do you
Yeah.
contribute? How do you, right? And it's up for the tech leaders to show, to demonstrate this. It's not going to come naturally otherwise. So it's really around the leader. It's around the people and how they embrace it themselves and how they add value with the business. And I know it does sound cliche, but I've seen so often that failing without
Yeah.
having the right people. And then you create that gap between the business and technology, and then the wheels start again
Yeah.
with the next problem. So transversal skills, I think, are extremely important more and more nowadays. The strategic thinking, right? It's
Mm.
one thing to work on the tactical results, the
Yeah.
outcomes that are coming out of the next project, but often the people who are the best positioned to advise the business leaders in the organization on how to make sure where decisions are strategic and they're going to take into account the scalability we want in a year from now are coming from the technical space, from the technology leader. I think that role will definitely evolve in, like, technology will be everybody's business in a couple of years, right? And I'm sure, Dalibor, you've seen that in the course of the past decade, where organization went and decentralized entirely their IT.
Mhm.
Then they brought it back because it
Oh yeah.
failed.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Is one, I think the technology wasn't there to support this. In order to be able to decentralize and really make the business owning their technology and evolve, you need to have the right supporting technology. It needs to be architected properly. It needs to
Yeah.
have the right platform that can evolve independently from the rest. That wasn't there 15 years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Some companies might have claimed they had the right software for this. It wasn't there. Now, if you do it right, it is. I think that the technical leader role at the center of an organization will be evolving into the strategic gatekeeping, making sure that everything evolves properly, the overall governance. But the technology, I think that more and more, now that the tech is there to support it, will be decentralized in the business, gaining agility, giving more momentum to the business, the different
Yeah.
business line, without having to have the central that is not necessarily always conducive to the agility that we need in our business and the scalability. But there's always going to be a role for the tech leader to be there, but it's going to be more at a strategic level, much more.
So you're almost describing an evolution where IT of the past was a support function, a back office support function, and what's happening is that it sort of burst through the back office into the mid office and into the front office, and now it needs to be infused across the whole organization. Technology is infused across the whole organization. This is how I interpret when you said it's no longer works to be centralized. It has to be it has to be everywhere. It is everywhere. And then the leader who can succeed in that environment, technology leader who can succeed in an environment, if I can summarize what you described, first needs to actually be the business leader. As in, so what does that mean? Understand the business of the business that is being served,
Mm-hmm.
understand how technology can enable and improve that business, understand the strategy of that business, be able to articulate it, and perhaps translate it into strategic technology investments. But then you mentioned also that tech leader, business leader, needs to also have the ability to provide advice to their peers across the business. So it needs to be advisor as well as deliverer. And then of all attributes that strategic thinking is really the one that kind of I capture stands out. Would that be a fair description?
That would be fair. I would just add to this that the decentralization and giving really business ownership over their ecosystem, technology ecosystem, needs to come with a prerequisite that technology is there to support it, right? You don't do that if you're still operating on mainframe, right? It needs to be otherwise, because that's what we've seen failing left, right, and center in many organizations when they did decentralize, because the technology wasn't there. It was not meant to be managed and evolved separate from the rest, so it had to be centrally managed. Nowadays, if you do it right, if you have the right platform, you have the right technology supporting, of course, minimum governance. But you're right. When you mentioned the strategic emphasis that I was making, I think it's hyper important. Otherwise, if you don't have that advisor role, that central strategic and gatekeeping also, because there's a minimum of governance, I don't believe we'll scale as an organization. I mean, especially in large organization, we all live in the same house, right? It's fine. You manage your own room here, but eventually you need to get out and go in the kitchen. There's a minimum that needs to be managed, reinforced by centrally. But the strategic advisory, like listening to the market trend, adding value, challenging the status quo, bringing it to the next step, and introducing also new technology as it comes available, I think it's going to be the role of the tech leader more than just pure delivery centrally.
Advisor and orchestrator, coordinator. And now, to me, what that also implies is that a technology leader, the one that you describe, in order to become truly a credible advisor to the business, they need to see that leader as their peer, right?
Yes.
Not as a provider of services, but as their peer. They need to be comfortable meeting each other at the level, right? And that's, I think, really important for every technology leader to think about, like, am I really a peer to my colleagues? And do they experience me as that peer? Do I have a permission to provide advice? Will they value it? And that's actually, I think, really, really interesting question. You spoke a lot about your own evolution in your career from 15 years ago, where the focus was disciplined project management and delivery of projects, to now a lot more about interest in people and leading people and managing through change, and sort of and you actually described how you shifted from red driver in the colors to green sort of diplomat, let's say, empath diplomat. The question came from the audience about IT talent. So about people, I wanted to ask you that question. How do you actually approach IT talent, people that you work with, and what strategies do you find most effective in ensuring that your team members continue to be engaged and innovative and aligned to the enterprise goals? There is so much going on in technology. How do you and everyone else stay up to date?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. That's an ongoing challenge, right? Look, okay, I can talk about, I need a career path, go take your LinkedIn courses and all that stuff. Yeah, okay, but that's obvious for everybody. One strategy that we are actually enforcing here at EDC, which I've experimented in the past as well, is like, there has to be often a vehicle for that transition and that skill up of our workforce, right?
Yeah.
And most often than not, it's the actual implementation of the new technology. You're implementing Salesforce, you're implementing ServiceNow. You have a lot of people who are actually there that can transition, pivot from the older technology we have and transition with the new one. So how do you go about this, right? Send them to boot camp and all this. That's one thing. At the same time, you have your project that you want to deliver. So how do you? Why do you want some know-how that you bring? So what I found that works super well, and this is what we're doing here, is that you want to bring the knowledge from outside a little bit in terms of the implementation, not replacing your folks, but bringing that hands-on training experience, been there, done that in these implementation, and pair them with your local, your internal workforce, right? So one danger sometimes I've seen organizations doing is that they implement, I don't know, you mentioned like CRM Salesforce. Let's put a common example. They give that to a system integrator. They develop everything outside. They leave it there, or they try to reintegrate it after, but nobody knows how to manage it and
Yeah.
how to evolve it. Then you get in that's not a comfortable situation to be. What I found working is that you leverage your internal workforce throughout those projects to implement these new technologies, learn along the way, right? That's an investment we're making in our workforce. So then when you've implemented that new technology, whether it be a Salesforce, a CRM, a ServiceNow, a Workday, doesn't matter. You've 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 been successful at transitioning your existing workforce into that new one. See, the thing is, I'm not a man of like doing plans and like yes, we need the nice career path, and you're gonna take that course, that course, that course. At the end of the day, for these type of skills and really be successful in your new
Yeah.
role, let's say, you gotta be hands-on. You gotta
Hands-on. I
be
love it. I
you
love it.
gotta
I
learn it
love
there.
it.
So you need to
Yeah.
provide those opportunities to the workforce so that they can transition successfully to the new
I love it.
world, let's say, the new
Yeah.
technology.
I 100% agree with you. And so the benefit of that strategy is, so not only do the people who work in IT get exposed to modern technology and learn from experts on how to do the integration and deployment and how the new technology actually works, but as a side benefit, an important one, you retain the knowledge within your group,
Internally. That's
and that
super
allows you
important.
to actually hold your own destiny more firmly into your own hands.
And that's a must. That's a must. Like keeping our hands on the steering wheel
Yeah,
and making sure that the key knowledge always stays inside. This trouble starts when you lose that.
yeah,
When
yeah,
you lose
yeah,
that
yeah.
because you've externalized too much, and that's
So,
no,
yeah.
that's a
So
no no.
what I take out of this is that I think that like you are recognizing the value of the ecosystem that exists outside EDC and taking action to extract what you can from that ecosystem so that people within EDC can be upskilled, learn new relevant modern things, and then retain that insight for the ultimate value and benefit of EDC and themselves as they navigate their careers. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, priority number one is the internal workforce. Then you mentioned it, like the system integrator ecosystem, the consulting ecosystem. For me, they're a mean to an end, right? They help us execute. They help
mhm.
us go faster. They do also the cross pollination of knowledge across organization, right? They're getting us the knowledge that they gain from other implementation before, and we use that. But at the end of the day, the evolution, the after projects, the day to day, it has to be our workforce, and you have to be careful to make sure that you maintain that and people engage, but also at the skills they need to be.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty cool. Um, we are slowly coming at time, and I have quite a few actually questions from the audience. So thanks everybody for submitting your questions. There is one more that I think would be an interesting one to ask you, and then we can talk a little bit about what would be your advice to your younger self. But the question is that many public crown organizations are being asked to do more with less, given the uncertainty in the market and all the geopolitical circumstances, everything, more with less. So the question is, if money was not an object, where would you like to invest more within your organization?
um, if money is no object,
Yeah.
if it's I take it from a pure Okay, let's see from a technology standpoint. I would, oh God, I don't know. I would find a way so then we can, actually, I would double the workforce to actually be able to run very efficiently what we have today, because we still live in the house, and have the right people focusing on the modernization. I always feel that we're late on this. So if I had like absolute, like,
Yeah.
let's make sure because right now it's the same team, right? That we're moving from the existing to the new, working in projects and all. And I'm including business in there because the business technology partnership, of course, is crucial to all this. So this whole, I would create a separate ecosystem of all those people to really fast track the
So the investment will go into people, in other words.
this one will go into people.
That's wonderful. Wonderful.
Unless you
So
know of a solution, a software you can buy that solves all this, then I would be.
not yet. As a matter of fact, I cannot guarantee that there won't be one in 2 years, given the way things are going these days. We have, what I'm experiencing is, I don't know if you have the same feeling, but to me it feels like we are now at the point where news that would otherwise be the news for a whole year seems to be coming every 3 days. Like the,
Yeah, I
the
hear you.
breakthroughs and developments. So like, who knows what this will all look like in 2 years from now? Yeah. So Dominic, I want to ask you the final question. And thank you again so much for your time. This was wonderful. You have given us so much wisdom and gold nuggets here to learn from. So thank you for that. When you reflect on your sort of whole career and how you sort of navigated it and what you've learned across those, I'm sure I'm going to get 20 plus years, what would be your advice to your younger self?
Well, first to buy Amazon and Apple stock in the early 2000s, but that's a classic. Um, the I wish that I've taken more risk earlier in my career. It's funny because I didn't have kids. I was free. I mean, I could do whatever I wanted. I
Yeah,
was risk adverse entirely from a career standpoint.
interesting.
I had a lot of opportunities that I turned down. Could have moved in Silicon Valley and things like that. I would just make the jump and just do it. I didn't do it, and that was mostly maturity, just like not recognizing the opportunity, but also just like not trusting myself enough to take major risk. The weird part is that I started taking more risk as I mature up in my life.
Yeah,
But then I had kids, so it's like,
it's flipped.
right. So then you need, so take a lot of risk. I mean, it always works out at the end. I've calculated risk. Don't go insane, but I would have given my advice. I would have given myself an advice of taking more risk, and at the same time, stop doubting myself. I stopped doubting myself too late in my life. At one point, it's just like, go for it. Um, Getting out of the comfort zone.
Yes,
It's
yes.
easy to get comfortable. No, is it Steve Jobs said, don't settle, keep moving, something like that.
Yeah.
um, I gotten into too comfortable too often in my life,
Hmm.
and every time that I made the move, I'm looking back, I should have done that a year before. It's
Earlier,
like,
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah. And often that challenge of getting out of my comfort zone came from external, from my mentors, from this, from that, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's just, but uh, by myself, I would not get out of that zone. Right now, I'm past that, but I wish I'd have realized that earlier on. And finally, is to be more thankful and nurturing the relationship that I've built. I've lost so many people along the way, like people I'm not in touch with. Okay, fine, I can Facebook and
Yeah, yeah,
LinkedIn, but I mean,
yeah, yeah.
like really good human that I've met in my career that I just like, I moved on, right? And looking back, it's like, I wish that there
Absolutely.
are a lot of people of those that I've just nurtured, because at the end of the day, what's left, it's those relationships you've built. That's it, right? It's not the
That's
technology, the system you build, that policies that you've adopted. It's all the people. And it's late in my career that I realized that I started like being very careful with this and nurturing those relationships. And of course, and along these lines, it's never burn bridges, which is an obvious one, but for me, it paid off a lot to not burn those bridges along the way. So yeah, no, I wish I've nurtured more the relationship that I've built along the way throughout my career.
That's wonderful, and that's actually very wise. So take more risks early, get yourself out of your comfort zone, cherish the relationships, don't break the bridges. That's sort of what I extracted from that last question. Dominic, this was wonderful. I want to thank you very much for your time. And for the audience members, tomorrow, same time, same channel, I will be welcoming Deloitte's Global Chief Futurist, Mike Bechtel from Chicago. And he and the team are going to talk to us about Deloitte's tech trend, about how AI is elevating the reach and remit of IT talent. So there was a whole research done on how are the leading organizations leveraging AI within their IT organizations. We'll be unpacking that tomorrow on Tuesday, March 18th at noon Eastern. If you haven't registered, please do. And with that, Dominic, thank you again so very much, and have yourself a lovely Monday.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dalibor, for having me today.
Bye-bye.
Bye.